In the heart of the Caribbean, on the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, a very frustrating situation exists for PAs. While Puerto Ricans are American citizens, NCCPA certified PAs are not allowed to treat patients and work in the Puerto Rican healthcare system. The situation is a little convoluted and frustrated, and we're going to dive into exactly what the problem is and how we can fix it. We're also going to talk about why it is so important that this situation gets ironed out on Puerto Rico and how it can affect the PA profession as a whole all across the globe. So if you're interested in this topic, then please stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Weichel. I am a proud asociado médico, or PA, currently based out of Denver, Colorado, and I've been practicing in OBGYN for about 4 years.
My name is Lara Juarez, and I am an asociado médico, or a PA. I graduated from the University of Utah in 2016 and have spent most of my clinical PA career in surgery and surgical subspecialties.
So we are here to talk about where PAs cannot practice medicine, where they can't treat U.S. citizens, and that is where?
We are talking about La Isla del Encanto, also known as Puerto Rico.
I sometimes forget how Puerto Rico is related to the U.S. So why don't you fill us in a little bit about Puerto Rico and things that people in the U.S. should know about Puerto Rico, but that we probably don't.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. So here's a quick snapshot. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. In fact, it's the largest of the 5 U.S. territories. It is home to approximately 3.5 million U.S. citizens. Currently on the island, which is a huge issue that we'll get into a little bit more today, is there are only less than 10,000 active physicians practicing on the island.
And so when we talk about Puerto Rico being a U.S. territory, what does that mean? Like, what's the language? Do they use the U.S. dollar? Are they plugged into our healthcare system, like Medicare and all that stuff? How is it similar or different from the U.S.?
So in the Spanish-American War, which was the end of the 1800s, was when the United States actually acquired Puerto Rico. And then they were kind of in a limbo state for several years until 1917. And that's when, on paper, they were made U.S. citizens. And again, on paper, supposed to have the same rights as U.S. citizens. But that's where we start to see how, even though there's a lot of self-governance on the island, that there are some federal programs that do apply and some that don't. So like Medicare and Medicaid are on the island, but they don't exactly work in the same way that they do in the United States.
So Puerto Rican's main languages are Spanish and English, and they use the US dollar. You do not need a passport to travel from Puerto Rico to the States, and nor do you need a passport to travel from the States to Puerto Rico. As Laura was saying too, so reimbursement in general on the island is totally different. One of the main differences is the way that federal funding is allocated. So for Medicaid annually in the States, they're allotted based off of the poverty level. And in Puerto Rico, they receive a capped sum annually for Medicaid. So it doesn't matter if you have a greater population that's reliant on Medicaid services, you meet that quota and then there's no more money. In addition, there's an capped sum for Medicare as well. So you can see how those can create a lot of health disparities on the island.
Do Puerto Ricans vote in general elections for like president things?
So actually, they don't get to vote in the presidential election. And I can even say, as somebody that was living in the States previously, who moved to Puerto Rico right before a president election, I was then not allowed to vote any longer simply because of my residency change.
Now, are either of you from Puerto Rico or live in Puerto Rico right now?
I can go first on that one because this is something else Laura and I wanted to address. You know, while we can sit here and speak about Puerto Rico and love Puerto Rico, the culture, and live with it day to day, we just like to say for everybody that we are not Puerto Rican. And so while we feel that we're in a place of privilege to be able to voice the concerns of healthcare on the island, we also know that it's very, very important to remain culturally humble and to leave a major space for Native Puerto Ricans to be able to voice their concerns and their opinions as well.
So I was born in the United States and also went to school here. And then after PA school, had the opportunity to move to Puerto Rico with my husband for his work.
Okay, so you moved to Puerto Rico, and that is a good segue to ask, you're a PA. Can PAs work in Puerto Rico? Can U.S. trained PAs actually practice medicine in Puerto Rico?
So the short answer to can PAs practice in Puerto Rico is no.
Let's expand a little bit on why that is. In 2017, Ley 71, Law 71, was passed on the island, recognizing the PA/slash medical asistente profession. So we have to pause for just a second and do a little Spanish lesson about the difference between medical asistente and asociado médico.
Do you know how to introduce yourself to a Spanish-speaking patient, saying, "Hey, my name is Michelle. I'm a PA."
I say, soy Michelle. That's all I say.
Okay, well then let's this will be a great job to teach you and to teach your subscribers. So when you want to introduce yourself to a Spanish speaking patient, you will say, "Hola, me llamo," insert your name. So for me, it'd be, "Hola, me llamo Kimberly. Yo soy asociado médico." So asociado médico is the AAPA endorsed Spanish translation for our profession. And it has been supported by the AAPA since as early as 1998. So do you want to practice with us?
Yo soy asociado médico. Is that what you said?
Perfecto.
Me llamo
Muy bien.
Michelle. Yo soy asociado médico. So
Exactly.
that's good to know because I always wonder about that. So I'm the PA that's going to be seeing you because I use that mostly, but I understand Spanish speakers may not understand what that means.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
even if you're not practicing in Puerto Rico, you may be practicing with patients that speak Spanish. And so if we can consistently translate and use the same, as we said, endorsed by AAPA and PAs for Latino Health, as well as our Puerto Rico chapter, that it's Asociado Médico. The reason we get hung up on that in Puerto Rico is because there really is another profession that's using the term medical asistente.
And so, as Laura was mentioning earlier, in 2017, the law to regulate the medical asistente profession in Puerto Rico was released. The first line of the law explains that these professionals, medical asistentes, can use the initials PA after their name. The law mandates that each PA or medical asistente has a supervising physician. The supervising physician must oversee all notes written by the médicos asistentes. Médicos asistentes, or PAs, since the law was written that way, cannot prescribe medications. They are not really diagnosing and treating. So basically what happened was Ley 71, the writers believed that there was a need to fulfill the healthcare shortage on the island. But we have to ask ourselves, with the way that the law was written, are these médicos asistentes, because they can't prescribe, because they truly they don't have a full scope of practice, how much are they really able to address the healthcare shortages on the island? You can see how the law kind of created an umbrella term. So under Law 71, our profession was kind of lumped in with these other healthcare professionals.
So who are these other people that are working under the title? I mean, are they more like medical assistants or do they actually have medical training?
So this umbrella term that's being used in Puerto Rico right now has looped in a group of people who have gone to their 4 years of medical school, but then have not passed the USMLE Step 1 or Step 2 or completed an intern year or residency. So it's really a unique title because even in the United States, sometimes we'll run into assistant physicians who may be trained internationally or are known as international medical graduates. And this is even another category because, again, they've completed 4 years of medical school, but then no board exams, no intern year, and no residency.
Unfortunately, we don't have access to any public data. What we do know is that from Laura's license number, because she was actually able to attain the Puerto Rico PA license. Laura, what is your license number?
917.
So our best assumption is that there's over 900 of these médicos asistentes on the island. From some research we've done through surveys, because again, we don't have access to any public data, we've mostly identified that the médicos asistentes currently looking for jobs or working on the island as these médicos asistentes PAs are international medical graduates. So they've completed medical training in Cuba, Dominican Republic, or Mexico, and then have come to Puerto Rico, either returning home to Puerto Rico or moved to Puerto Rico to try to practice medicine.
So since you got licensed, you actually can work in Puerto Rico as a physician assistant, but it would be as one of these other people, more like kind of a glorified scribe or elevated MA type situation. You certainly cannot work a full scope of practice like you can in the US.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's something that has been really difficult for me personally because here we moved to Puerto Rico in the hopes that we would be able to assist with the healthcare provider shortage. And then I really have to make a choice. Do I want to try to function in that capacity and stay on the island? Or I've been taking advantage of the opportunity to do locums tenens and travel stateside so that I can continue, my personal skills to develop as a PA, because I really have been a PA for less than 10 years, and then come back to the island and focus more on the advocacy and the legislation.
So, in order for PAs to practice, as we know in the US, it seems like that there needs to be some clarification in the laws. Is that correct? And is there work being done towards that?
Yes. So in 2021, the special interest group through the AAPA called PAs for Puerto Rico changed into the very first constituent org. So basically, we're like a state chapter, though Puerto Rico is not a state. We're the first constituent org to represent Puerto Rico. So our name is La Academia de Asociados Médicos de Puerto Rico. We call ourselves AMPER for short because that is a mouthful. But it was very important for us to have our title in Spanish. So that way, when we do our advocacy efforts on the island, we are being recognized in that way. So yes, legislative efforts is a huge goal of AMPERS right now. Currently, our main idea is that we understand that because of the dire need for healthcare providers on the island, we've kind of coined this phrase, we all want to play nice in the sandbox, because I believe as the PA, as we know them, we're amazing team players, right? We specialize in collaborative care teams. And so we would continue that practice in Puerto Rico by being able to work alongside the médicos asistentes. But we need a new law that represents the rigorous training that we go through to get our NCCPA certification, right? And then we need to be able to diagnose, to treat, to prescribe, to really do the duties that reflect the training that we've been through, right? Because that's truly how we feel we, number one, reach more patients, we improve healthcare access, we improve healthcare outcomes on the island, but then also we help the struggling physicians that have been able to stay on the island to serve their communities.
When you said earlier the percentage of physicians to the general population, it does seem like there is a definitely disparity there and need for more providers. And I'm kind of confused though, because it's my understanding that there is actually a PA school in Puerto Rico, correct? I mean, in training PAs as we get trained, right in there, is the school ARC accredited?
In 2020, a school was identified in Puerto Rico, San Juan Bautista, that was an established medical school that was interested in starting a PA program. So went through the ARC accreditation process initially in 2021, matriculated the first cohort of students. And so now they are just getting ready to graduate and take the PANCE.
So they will have the same certification that we do, be NCCPA certified and everything. But what is going to happen to those students? They can't practice in Puerto Rico. Can they practice in the US?
Right. So our vision when we started the PA program was to be able to train people from the community who could be certified PAs and then stay in the community and work. And we've often gotten the question, well, if you knew PAs couldn't work in Puerto Rico, then why did you start the school? And the answer was, it was a little bit of a which comes first, the chicken or the egg, because we needed the students and the voice in order to be able to change things. So at this moment, the students that graduate from the PA program do have to leave the island if they want to practice medicine as a PA. But we're hoping that the advocacy that we're doing as the state chapter, as AMPER, will give the opportunity for us to do that legislative change.
How do they do rotations? Did they do rotations there in Puerto Rico? And if so, what kind of reception do you know that they received from the medical establishment and from physicians that they worked with?
So I was the founding academic coordinator for the program at San Juan Bautista and can give you at least the experience of those first cohort students, but also I'm not speaking as a current employee of San Juan Bautista. So it was a challenge for us to find preceptors in the community because we wanted to make sure that they knew the full scope of a stateside trained PA so that they weren't actually just being medical assistants. Many of the physicians in Puerto Rico have done some of their training in the States and are familiar with the PA model. And that is to our advantage because they understand how we can be part of a team and they want to use us to the fullest of our abilities.
So it sounds like you're probably getting some decent reception from physicians who are US trained, but overall, do you feel like there's resistance in the Puerto Rican health system to the idea of PAs as we know them?
So this is one of the points that we are trying so hard to help educate our physician colleagues in Puerto Rico. Because if you are already an overworked and underpaid physician, and you have a limited number of jobs and you see an entirely new profession that's coming in, there's a little bit of a panic for the scarcity. But the message that we're hoping that we can send is you don't have to see us as employees who are taking part of the salary because we have the ability to bill insurance and Medicare and Medicaid. And our hope is that if we really are integrated onto physician-led teams in Puerto Rico, we can even help drive up their reimbursement rates and increase the pay for physicians there.
I imagine a lot of the students that went to, or maybe all of them that went to the Puerto Rico school, the PA school, are Puerto Ricans and wanted to stay there on the island and help improve access to healthcare.
Each of the successive cohorts, so there's 3 now, we have increased the number of Puerto Rican residents as students.
So, speaking of the students, let's hear from them directly right now and what they have to say about the situation of being a student, a PA student in Puerto Rico, and what the future looks like.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Moya. I am a second year PA student here at San Juan Bautista School of Medicine in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. I was born in Cali, Colombia, but lived most of my life in North Carolina. It has always been important for me to cultivate my Latino heritage, and now as a future PA, it is also my goal to have an active role in the healthcare of my community. If I could describe my experience in a few words, I would say it has made me a more resilient person. We, as PA students, are pioneers here in Puerto Rico in the sense that we've needed to really set the bar as to what is an asociado médico or PA and also explain our scope of practice. My ultimate plan is to return to the island and serve the people of Puerto Rico at my fullest capacity as a PAC.
So there's issues facing the PA profession in Puerto Rico. Why do you think it's important for us to really get the PA profession defined as we define a practicing PA in the US? Why is that so important to the PA profession as a whole in the global sense?
So, just like we talked about the history of Puerto Rico being unique, where it isn't really a state, but it's not an independent country, Puerto Rico sits really at this linchpin position in PA education and PA practice, even internationally. Because if we have an appropriate scope of practice in Puerto Rico, then because they are US citizens and we can travel back and forth, that could open up the door for telemedicine, that could open up the door with licensure reciprocity, professional mobility. But on an international scale, we've linked up with IAPAE, which is the International Association of PA Educators, who is really the resource for existing and developing PA and what they call PA analog providers. And we want to make sure that this becomes a very clear stepping stone in between that international path and the stateside path.
So basically, if we can't even define the scope of practice in our own territory, then how can we expect other countries to have PAs that are comparable to US trained PAs? So eventually, I assume we would like to be able to say globally, I'm a PA or I'm a physician assistant or a physician associate, and it be a known term and have similar scope of practice globally, correct?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think when we bring it back to the setting of Puerto Rico specifically, we currently know that, like we mentioned, there's about 900 of these médicos asistentes signing their name. And because most of them have completed medical school, they sign their name, doctor, first name, last name, comma, MD, comma, PA. And we know this is happening. And we also know that these medical assistentes, they understand what our profession is stateside. And so what we've noticed that they've started to ask our organization is if they can sit for our certification exam, if they can sit for the NCCPA PANTS. And so that's where it's also not just on Academia de Asociados Médicos de Puerto Rico, or AMPR, it's also on our national orgs to support and maintain the integrity of our profession. And we do know that the NCCPA will not allow non-PA, accredited PA program graduates to sit for the PANTS. And so in that way, we are able to protect the Asociado Médico physician associate, physician assisted profession.
So if PAs who are watching this, like in the States or maybe even in other countries, are concerned about this and want to help move the profession forward and get the standards set up, is there a way that they can be involved or that they can help?
Yes, absolutely. So first and foremost, we would love to have anybody interested join as an AMPR member. You can go to Academia de Asociados Médicos de Puerto Rico, and we have a MyPA Network website where you can join as a member. You can follow us on social media. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And through our social media platforms, you have access to a change.org platform that Laura and I worked really hard on. And that platform goes through all of the issues that we talked about today. And last we checked, it had over 2,000 signatures on it. And yes, we hope to use that change.org petition to kind of bring attention to legislators in Puerto Rico and to physicians and to patients.
Great. Well, I will definitely put all the links down below to how people can reach you and find you on all the different social media platforms. So, Laura, since you have actually lived there in Puerto Rico, I unfortunately have not had a chance to visit yet. Will you tell us a little bit about Puerto Rico, what makes it kind of special, and what you love about it?
Puerto Rico is a beautiful place with beautiful people. Obviously, the beaches are fun. We also have the longest zip line. There's surfing, which is wonderful over on the west side in Rincon, and some beautiful art, obviously, the food and the music.
If neither of you are from Puerto Rico, I wonder what got you to be involved in this and what is your tie to Puerto Rico?
So I am married to a Puerto Rican man. So that is what kind of initially how this came to be for me is in PA school. We have to do that lovely end of year capstone project. And so at the time, my husband was completing his second year of medical school. And I said, you know what, maybe one day we'll move to the island and be able to practice medicine together. And so as I was writing my paper, I was being intrigued by all of the ways that I thought that PAs could really improve access to care on the island. Then flash forward 2019, I graduated PA school and I decided that nobody knew about this issue. None of my faculty in school, none of my friends in school, none of my preceptors knew that Puerto Rico was a place that we couldn't work. And so I decided that my paper needed to, number one, I put a lot of work into it. So something needed to happen with it. And I was connected with Laura, who helped me edit my capstone project to become a JAPA article, so the Journal of the American Academy of PAs. And that is kind of how our friendship blossomed.
And Laura, how did you get interested in Puerto Rico?
So I really have to give credit to my public health career prior to PA school because I had a love for global health, which is what kind of pulled me in that direction anyway. So when my husband had the opportunity to move to Puerto Rico for his work, it seemed like a natural fit where it could be medicine and PA as well as public health.
It just dawned on me that I know that U.S. trained PAs work in the Virgin Islands, which they're a territory too, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We love meeting up with our colleagues from the USVI at AAPA. They've sat next to us in the House of Delegates the last couple of years. And so they share a lot of the same concerns as far as being an island, access to care, but they do have a Better PA Practice Act and a little bit more autonomy.
So the path has already kind of been paved a little bit there. There are things that we can learn from the Virgin Islands and hopefully be able to apply to Puerto Rico. Okay, well, last things that you guys would like to say about the PA profession in Puerto Rico or Puerto Rico in general?
Yes. So we're always just so grateful for our opportunity to be able to share our passions and to be able to share some of the things that are currently happening. So I will say that one of the really important things we hope that listeners take away from this episode is that médico asistente does not equal asociado médico. And this is not a Puerto Rico only problem. This is a Spanish language problem that needs to be addressed. And so one thing that providers can do just across all states is start using the APA endorsed term for our profession. So start calling yourself an asociado médico, making sure that your interpreter services are calling you an asociado médico, and other Spanish speaking providers that you may work with are addressing you as asociado médico, because that will help make it easier for us when we start to lobby and do legislation for things in Puerto Rico.
And when Kimberly and I have had a chance to talk about this, and again, how passionate that we are, but wanting to be sensitive to lifting up the voices of the people that are born and raised and live in Puerto Rico. You may have heard of Bianca Graulau. She was featured in a Bad Bunny documentary. She's an independent journalist, but she does a magnificent job of highlighting a lot of the issues on the island. And so the quote that we love to leave with your listeners is on what she wishes that Americans understood about Puerto Rico. And that is that Puerto Rico is not a place full of helpless people waiting for the US to come and save them. The issues that we face today in Puerto Rico are in great part a result of many years of colonization, and the US has a responsibility with Puerto Rico. It's not a matter of charity to be given. It's a matter of responding to a place that we have in fact benefited from the moment that we occupied more than 120 years ago.
True. And also in that quote, the first thing that struck me is that there are plenty of Puerto Ricans who would like to step up and help solve the problem themselves and would love to do that by being a PA. So we need to get the PA profession defined there so that Puerto Ricans can step up and fill those spots. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your passion with us, letting us know about the situation in Puerto Rico, and helping us understand how we can help move the profession forward.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
If you're a PA watching this video and you are interested in global health or maybe working somewhere around the world as a PA, and you're wondering how you can do that, well, you can watch these videos here. You can also go to playlists on my main channel page to see lots of other videos about working internationally. Well, thanks for joining me. As always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.